Since building our 3/4 acre pond in the winter of 2023, it took almost an entire year before there was enough rain to begin filling it up to a substantial level. But sure enough, as the wet season came around, the pond finally started to look how we imagined. We were really excited to take our first swim in this big puddle that we created, but unfortunately, as it goes with many earthen dams, we quickly noticed that the level of the water was dropping pretty quickly, which meant that we had some substantial leaks that needed to be repaired. G'day friends, welcome back to our channel, and in today's video I'll be sharing with you guys how we use DamIt Dam Sealer to successfully seal up our leaking pond behind me here. And now this project has been a pretty big deal for us because the level of the water was dropping pretty quickly when the pond first filled up. So about this much, almost a couple of inches, 4 centimeters, and after a week we had lost almost a foot of water. So we were losing hundreds of thousands of liters of water, and we simply didn't have the money or the resources to go about this the traditional way. So the traditional way, what it involves is normally draining the water, draining the millions of liters of precious water, and then you'd order in either clay or bentonite clay, and then you'd use machines to work that in. And that's very expensive. For us, that would have cost probably around $10,000, money that we didn't have to spend. So we wanted to try an alternative, and now as a spoiler alert, I'm not going to wait until the end of the video, this solution cost us less than $2,000, and we got the leaks for good. We had to apply the product twice, and it's ended up working really well. And this video has been filmed over a number of months, so this isn't just me standing here after a big downpour saying, look, the dam's full, and tomorrow it goes down. So we're pretty happy with the result. We've been monitoring the level of the water for months, so we know for sure that it works. And that's the really cool thing about these polymer-based dam sealer products, that you can apply them directly to the water. In fact, the more water there is in the dam, the better it is, because that pressure will push the product into all of the cracks and leaks that are there. And I also wanted to talk about a challenge that people encounter with using this product, which is basically that if you go online and you look at some reviews, you're basically going to see that, at least at the time of filming this video, on Google the product has a 2.5-star review. So some people say it works really good almost instantly, and other people say, oh no, I've wasted thousands of dollars and it didn't work. So the first time I saw this product used was on the Bama Bass YouTube channel. They've got a 5-acre pond. This is a 3/4 acre pond, so I can't imagine how huge that one looks. And basically they had a leak in the dam wall. They applied the product, and next thing you know, the leak was gone. So based on that video, I had the confidence to look into this further, but had I relied on the reviews online, I might have not really considered using the product because so many people have had a bad experience. So that made us cautious, so I did a whole bunch of research. I got in touch with the team at Kayak just to find out why that's the case, what do we do, how do we make it work for us. And what they basically told us is the reason that it doesn't work for some people and it works for other people is not just because of the unpredictable nature of the product, that sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Generally that's not the case. Generally people don't really know how to apply it properly, and hence the bad results. So that's the key with this video. I want to share with you guys all of the cool info that we've learned along the way to get the best results that we could, because if you find yourself in a solution with a leaking pond, it's not a nice place to be, and I want to make sure that you guys can get the best out of your polymer-based sealers too. Alright, so now all of those people that have left bad reviews about the product, where do they go wrong? So there's a couple of key misconceptions, which funny enough, when I spoke to the guys at Kayak, I realized that I was actually about to apply the product wrong myself. So I guess first of all, you can't use this product in really rocky dams. If you've got rocks, it's not going to work, and if you've got a liner, it's also not going to work, or if it's a concrete pond, also unlikely to work. This product works best with earthen dams. That one's kind of obvious, it says that on the packet, but the other two things aren't so obvious, and that is that when a pond leaks, the water level generally goes down and stops at a certain point, and there's some water left over in a leaky pond, and that makes people think that the water leaked out the sides. Now, from the 10 years or so that the guys at Kayak have been working with this product, they told me that's generally not the case. Why, you might be wondering, and it's because at the deep end of the dam there's all of this water that's creating the hydrostatic pressure, hence the deepest end of the dam is likely to leak. But when you think about the edges of the dam, the pressure there is basically nothing. So the edges aren't as likely to leak as the deepest end. That's misconception number one. So they advised for us to focus on the deepest areas, and also if you've got a dam wall where that excavated dirt meets virgin ground in the keyway, that's an area that's likely to leak as well. So misconception number one, go for the deep ends and make sure that the area near the dam wall is covered. Now, misconception number two is the method of application. So we were a little bit rushed when we bought the product, and I thought, oh, I'll just throw it into the dam. I got no time to mess around with special equipment and whatnot. But as soon as I said that I spoke to Simon at Shalex, he said, no, don't do that. He said, in fact, one of the guys that he spoke to was using a shovel, which he thought was pretty efficient for throwing the product in the dam, and he used thousands of dollars, by the way. And the problem with that is that you create clumps. So you're throwing the product in by hand or with a shovel, all you're going to have is clumps, and that's not how the product works ideally. What you want is a nice evenly spread surface where the particles basically disperse across the entire surface of the water, and then as they sink they're going to find their way to all of those leaks. So for that, what we've got is a seed spreader. I'm going to run up there and bring it over for you guys to show you in a moment. Alright, we're back here with the seed spreader that we used, and we've got a Ryobi one here. So some people want to get better seed spreaders. I wouldn't really advise getting anything cheaper than this, but this was actually perfect. I saw one video on YouTube where a guy bought a cheaper seed spreader and it just had some I don't know, AA or D cell batteries. Basically they weren't very good. So the seed spreaders that use the 18-volt batteries from Power Tools, I would generally advise to go down that route, because you don't want to have it fail halfway through the project. It's a very important task here to seal millions of liters of water. So I personally wouldn't cheap out on the tool that's used for application, and this one only cost about $100 anyway, so it wasn't that expensive considering the value of water. And the way it works is there's basically a thing that rotates in there and a little trapdoor that opens. So that's how the stuff gets pushed into the little hole with the thing that spins, and then you got this area here. So that rotates, and you can adjust the angle at which it's spread, so either narrow stream or wider. So I definitely highly recommend this seed spreader here. After we finished using it for about an hour, the battery was still full, whereas the other video I saw, the product just failed. So highly recommend using a seed spreader for this. It ensures that you get the most out of your product. You're going to get a very even spread as opposed to doing it by hand or by any other kind of means. And so for anybody who's not familiar with these kinds of products, just want to talk a bit about what it is, how does it work. And basically it's a polymer powder. It works in a similar way to if you've seen those jelly crystals that you put in your garden and they retain moisture. It's a similar kind of thing, and what happens when it hits the water is it expands to, they say, up to 300 times its size. So it looks like sugar grains basically when it's dry, and when it expands it looks like little jelly crystals. But when you got it in the water, they all combine together and they form a layer of slime. It looks like snot, really. It's a bit gross. It's a bit gross to walk around in. And the other cool thing about it is that the particles are negatively charged, and that does two things. It attracts clay particles or silt particles in the water, and they help to block up the leaks more effectively. The other thing that does is it makes the product sink to the bottom of the dam quicker. And so within about 24 hours, the product will have settled. Within 3 to 24 hours, it sinks to the bottom, and that's when it starts to work. And after about 24 hours, you can walk in the dam again. If you're walking around while the product isn't fully in the crevices, that's okay. In fact, that's good because you help to push it further into those cracks. So it's important to avoid going into the water for the first 12 to 24 hours. After that, it's good. And funny enough, you'll also see that the product should work within 12 to 24 hours as well. But that said, if it doesn't work that quickly for you, don't be concerned, because for up to a week the powder, the jelly stuff can be working its way into the crevices. And some people even said that with the first application it sealed most of the leaks, and then it kept leaking a little bit more until they got a big downpour of rain. The level of the water went up and that created extra pressure, and that pushed the product in further, and then it stopped leaking altogether. So that's why we filmed this video over several months. After the first application, there was a very quick reduction in the leaks, and after that it kept leaking at an even rate. So we waited until the next big rain, level of the water went up, and unfortunately ours didn't seal fully after that, so we had to apply it for the second time. But that's the key. If it doesn't work in a day, don't panic, wait a week. You should see results in a week. If you didn't, you probably applied it wrong, or it's the wrong type of dam for the product. And the other thing is, before you rush to the store and buy more, spend another $1,000 or something, give it a month, wait until another big rain comes, and see how you go after that. During this first application, Sarah's role was to fill up the seed spreader while I walked around in the water spreading the product. Our strategy was to focus more heavily on the deeper areas, but also to ensure that the edges were covered too. So basically we covered the entire surface of the pond with a little more product used in those deeper sections. The reason I decided to go in by foot this time was because the water was still shallow enough to do that, and I didn't want to spend the time and money to buy a kayak or a boat. And yes, I survived after walking through all the DamIt slime. It's a non-toxic product that can be used in drinking water reservoirs. But with that said, it was a pretty messy job, so during the next application we did end up getting a second-hand kayak for $100, which ended up being a much more enjoyable experience. And just to mention a couple more important details, it's important to apply these kinds of products when there isn't much wind around, because on a windy day the particles can be blown around, and then the layer of jelly can also be pushed to one side of the pond, resulting in an uneven spread. And not to mention, if it's windy, you'll probably get the product in your eyes as well, which by the way I did, and it wasn't a problem either. I survived, obviously, to be here making this video. And the other thing to mention is that you cannot get any water in that seed spreader, because the polymer powder will instantly turn to slime and clumps and block up the chute.
A beautiful afternoon to try and seal our dam.
Oh, it's all around me. So that's what it looks like on my clothes.
Wow.
So it's obviously looks like really good stuff.
I see why other people online say they chuck their clothes out after.
Yeah.
But apparently if you let it dry out, that helps.
So I'm going to go stand by the fire and see if I can clean this stuff off myself.
Fingers crossed.
And after we were done, I went over to stand by the fire to have the polymer dry up. It gradually transformed from jelly pieces to a dry film that eventually could be rubbed off or even fell off on its own. Likewise, with clothes that were soaked in the slime, I ended up drying and shaking them out, and then they were fine in the washing machine, so we didn't need to chuck out those clothes, fortunately. And as mentioned, the product is non-toxic, so we got this shot of some tadpoles that ate a bunch of it, and as you can see they just pooped it out without any issues. But ironically these were cane-toed tadpoles anyway, so we had to fish them out. And the little fish in our pond seemed to be fine also, but if you apply a lot of this sealer product, some smaller fish can get stuck in the slime and suffocate. But in our case, most of them seem to be fine afterwards. And now onto the results after the first application. We took this photo the very next morning, where you can see that the first increment was before the DamIt was applied to the water, and the second increment is after applying the product. So long story short, within one night we reduced 80 or even 90% of the leaks, and this result stayed consistent for the next couple of months until we decided to apply more product. And so here you can see another photo where we tracked the level to be dropping consistently for 5 days, but then it just kept raining on and off, and because the dam was now holding water a lot better, these sticks just disappeared underwater, never to be seen again. G'day guys, welcome to today's video where we are applying DamIt Dam Sealer for the second time. So we've got Sarah in the kayak here helping out today.
New and improved method.
It's much better than walking through the water, being covered in the stuff. So
yeah, this is really relaxing.
Sarah's having a relaxing and fun time, and I'll be loading up the seed spreader and we'll be giving the dam another nice coat with the product. So we've already done a couple of passes, and one thing that we've learned is that it's way better to use a kayak than walking through.
This is the dream, yeah.
And we've got a rope here that the kayak's tied to, so I've just been pushing Sarah out and pulling her in, and we're doing kind of zigzag patterns like so.
Otherwise, if you had the paddle, you'd mix up the product a bit too much.
Yeah. Or have a little motor behind you, that would make it even easier.
Yeah.
And the other cool thing that I've done this time as opposed to last time is that if we're going from this end of the dam, we want to cover about a third with one bucket. So we've got the other bucket waiting over there, which is a checkpoint for how long the first bucket should last us. So I think that's all the important info to share with you guys on this round, and without further ado, we'll get stuck in and do another pass.
Sounds good.
So by the way, this is the texture of the product. It's a bit like sugar when it's dry. Okay, that's nice and full. We've still got a third of the bucket left, so you can go nice and heavy here. There's that. Okay.
Awesome.
Cool. I think the water is getting pretty slimy here.
I can see it all.
Jello.
Can you get all that in the shot? You can see it all like sitting on top of the water.
Yep.
Like a jelly layer.
Here there's a jelly layer. You can see little speckles on there. That's how you know that surface is finished. And got
Ew.
a little slime there like so. That's how it looks. So this time around, the dam sealing project ended up being a pretty peaceful and fun activity with this kayak compared to trudging through the water like previously. And it took us about an hour and a half to progress along while zigzagging back and forth across the dam like this. And here, if you look closely, aside from seeing the reflection of the sky in the water, which is pretty cool, you can also see the powder landing in the water as a nice and even layer, all thanks to that seed spreader. And the other thing to mention here is that considering last time 3 buckets were enough to plug 90% of the leaks, as we were spreading the product this time around, we decided to only use 2 of the 3 buckets this time for the remaining 10% of the leaks. So all in all, we ended up using 5 buckets, and after the first order, for those next couple of buckets, Shalex gave us a 10% discount, and this is something they're normally happy to do for returning customers. And so as a total cost summary, we spent about $1,600 on the dam sealer, $100 on the seed spreader, and another $100 on the kayak. And so we had this job done for under $2,000. So in the end, we used less than 1/3 of the recommended amount of product, and we successfully sealed up our dam for less than 1/5 of the cost of bringing in machines and the truckloads of clay. So in the next shot, I'll show you guys the measurements of the sticks that we had on the side of the dam and how we confirmed that finally it stopped leaking. Alright guys, we've now done 2 applications of the product, so let's take another look at the markings on the side of the dam where we've been monitoring how fast the water's been dropping. So, as an example, before we applied the product, it dropped about this much per day. Ever since we did the first application, overnight, the rate slowed down to about this much. But the original sticks that we looked at in the start of the video, they've been underwater for months, so we haven't actually seen them in that long because straight away the pond held water a lot better. But now we can see that from the water dropping this much, it stayed consistent throughout the whole couple of months before we applied the product for the second time. Now where we got the second row of sticks is when I started tracking the level of the dam after that second application. So if we take a closer look at this, these increments were actually still pretty consistent, and it's only on the 1, 2, 3, 4th day that we really started to see a difference. And there we've basically got the sticks on top of one another because the water was dropping so slowly that it was barely noticeable. And what helps is that at this stage it's winter, so there's hardly any evaporation, so any water that we lose is basically through it leaking out the dam. And as we can see in those results there, the water is now finally holding. So that's a success. We're pretty excited. The amount of money that this ended up costing was a mere fraction of what other methods would have ended up costing, and it was actually fun to apply. So we're pretty happy with how everything's turned out. Thanks to the team at Shalex for creating this awesome product, and yeah, we'd definitely use it again if we needed to. Highly recommend Shalex DamIt Dam Sealer. Alright guys, thanks for checking out this video, and just to share some final thoughts and facts about polymer-based dam sealers, do keep in mind that they break down within about 10 years time, but by that point there should be a fair bit of silt accumulated at the bottom of the dam anyway that should prevent any leaks further down the track. And the other thing is that if you've read some of the comments online about this product, some people do mention that after 2 or 3 months the leaks return. So far we haven't seen this to be the case, but we'll keep an eye on the water levels to let you know in case that happens for us. But in the meantime, the pond has become a really fun place to go kayaking in this winter, and there's also been a lot of really cool birds stopping by as well.